Boy, are you going to be glad that you have tuned in today. I don't care if you're in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, or your 70s. This has something for you. And when I first talked to Nori Jabba is my guest today. When I first talked to her, I just thought, this woman, I personally want to talk to her. She has so much to teach me. And so I know that you're going to love her too. So welcome, Nori. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It is great to be here today.
Well, first of all, I think your name is very intriguing, this Nori Jabba. You are related to Jabba the Hutt, is that correct?
Yes, it's true. Jabba the Hutt is actually Lebanese. And I married a Lebanese man, and yeah, we have the name Jabba, and there's only one Jabba family in the world, or maybe two, but they're all related, including Jabba the Hutt.
I love that story. Well, the reason that we are connected today on this podcast is that you're involved in this incredible work of helping women keep their seat at the table. And I think there are a lot of different tables that we can talk about here. There's the board table, there's the table of influence, there's the table of life, there's the table of your family, there's the table as a matron, a matriarch of your. I mean, there's just so many different tables. Specifically, today we are going to talk, I think, about that boardroom table. So, what I would like to know first is what inspired. Now, you were in your 50s when you wrote the book. I understand now you've reached the golden age of the 60, which is an amazing
Woohoo!
age. But you were in your 50s when you started the book. And
Yes.
what inspired you? What did you think you had to offer women? I mean, obviously, universally men as well, but women that
Yeah.
you had a special insight to.
Well, I went through a painful journey and I needed to share it because I knew I was not alone. I had been
Mm.
consulting for 10 years and decided to go back to work for a number of reasons. I wanted the consistency of income and I needed the benefits and hadn't contributed to my IRA for about 10 years the whole time I was consulting. My
Okay.
kids were grown, so I said, I've got this. I'm going to go back to work. And I have a great resume, 30 years experience, awards, master's degree. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered. I didn't matter. No one would hire me. And it
Ah.
really knocked my self-esteem down, so much so that I gave up on the job hunt and said, I'm going to write a book about this and learn what's really going on. So I decided to really delve deep and find out why women have such a hard time getting a job in their 50s, and sometimes it's in their 40s. And in some industries, I've learned it's even in your 30s. And
Hmm.
so what I learned was too important not to share.
Hmm. I think that's incredible. So, would you say that this your book that you've written, Keeping Your Seat at the Table, is a book geared just toward women, or is it a broader scope than that? Not that women
So
is not a broad enough scope.
yeah, I wrote it for women because I think women have a little bit harder time than men. But honestly, every single chapter in the
Hmm.
book applies to men too. And in fact, while I was writing it, I had several mentors and a lot of men I talk about in the book. My heroes, my mentors, a lot of them are men. And those that I spoke to said, wait, what about us? You need to write a book for us too.
Right.
And I just didn't feel like I could speak with authority on men's journeys, but
Mm.
they are definitely part of the book and it would enjoy reading the book. And they go through the same thing. Ageism affects everybody and it knocks you off your socks when it happens. Especially, and for men, it might even be harder in some ways because there's this expectation that they don't go through these problems, and they do. And so they tend to hide it more, whereas women lean on each other a little bit more. Men go through it in a more lonely way, and that's sad. So it definitely applies to men too.
Yeah. In my travels and in my speaking things and in my consultations, life coaching, I find that women are not afraid to use the word fear.
Yeah.
They are able to say, I'm afraid of this. I fear that I might not be able to be reemployed when I'm 50. It is like pulling teeth to get men to use the word fear. It's
Yeah.
not in their
It's really true.
DNA. It's not, they were born that they are not. So I've tried to pave an easier way for them by using the word, are you looking for courage? I mean,
I love that.
and that is easier for them, to say, yes, I'm looking for courage to do this rather than I'm afraid of this. And it's a little easier for them. But the fact that both men and women experience this, and I'm going to call it what it is, it's fear,
Yeah. It's
is
fear.
absolutely
And
true.
so I wrote the book kind of as a way of processing my fear. I was afraid. I was, I felt bad about myself because, what's wrong with me? Why won't anyone hire me? This isn't supposed to happen to me. And I think a lot of people go through that. And it was very frightening. Like, am I ever going to get a job again? And fortunately for me, I had that backup of consulting. So I just went back to consulting. But writing the book was a way of managing my fear and overcoming it. And boy, was it fun what I learned. And that's when I decided I have to really, I wrote the book really for myself, but I decided I had to share it because it was just too important what I learned. And it changed my life. I wouldn't be here
Mm.
today in this conference room, which is at my job, and taking time off for this podcast if I hadn't gone through my journey.
So, what were some of you would say, the key points that you learned as you began to look at this problem of keeping your seat at the table, keeping your importance, being significant? I even think about when I retired at age 65, thought, okay, suddenly I will be invisible. I had to make
Yeah.
choices. So, what did you learn?
So the most important thing was to shift my idea of the table. When I started my career, it was an arrow going up, and I had this
Ah,
vision that I would get that seat at the table someday. And when does that really happen? It's different for every person, but shifting that view of success is
mm.
what was at the heart of succeeding and getting my seat back at the table. It was really
Oh,
kind of not needing the seat anymore is what gave me my seat back.
yeah.
And that's really, it's flipping the table and creating my own journey and my own vision of what's important to me. And I had wanted to be a CEO of a company. I had these grandiose ideas for myself, and I basically just abandoned all of them because I decided I didn't need them anymore. And having my seat at the table began to look very different. What a job was there for to give me. What I needed to feed my ego completely changed. And I'm not going to be a CEO. And I'm okay with that. I still could be. There's, I still could be. Let's make that clear. But I have chosen not to be. I'm my own CEO. I'm a CEO of my life. And it just looks very different. And so once I abandoned that traditional arrow going up, and I call it squiggly lines. My career has been squiggly lines, and for a lot of women, it is. I took time off to have children. I paid a huge price for that. I actually quantified that in my book and realized that that decision of taking 6 years off to be a stay-at-home mom cost me $1 million. And
Whoa.
so, yeah, $1 million. And it probably is even more than that. And that is just taking the job that I had and adding 3% per year, modest
Yeah.
increase, no,
Yeah.
not even any promotion. And what I gave up for my salary, what I made if I'd stayed, and what I make now. And then I walked away from a pension too. I was 1 year away from vesting, and I walked away because I needed to be there for my kids, and it was too hard. So shifting that
Yeah.
view of an arrow to squiggly lines is key. And then just abandoning the traditional view of that boardroom table and being invited to have a seat. That doesn't really happen. You have to take your seat, and you have to sit at the head and create your own table. And that's really what the book is about, creating your own table.
I love that. So let's talk about this taking time off because I know many of my listeners are either have done that or have not done that, are considering that or worried about that. Now that you've put that in quantitative terms, what are your thoughts now about what your decision was?
Lots of thoughts. So I don't regret 1 minute of one day of staying home with my kids. I loved every minute of it. And I have birthed three incredibly strong women. And they are 23, 25, and 27 now, and I am so proud of them. And, they're just making their way through the world. However, it was really hard. And when I did go back to work 6 years later, it was almost impossible. And I joke about it in the book of how I prided myself on having these color-coded spreadsheets that I would spend hours producing every Sunday for how to manage the week when, when I was going juggling kids in school and volleyball and kung fu and school board meetings and just a crazy, crazy life. But I don't regret it, but I do regret it. I wish I'd stayed at least one more year in my job so that I would have vested for that pension, because now that I'm 60 and headed towards retirement, I'm just kicking myself for not
Ah,
figuring out how to make it work for one more year, because it would help a lot right now. But I also want to be there for my own kids when they have kids, because I know how hard it is
mm,
to get that seat back at the table after 6 years off. It was really tough to go back
yes,
into the work world. So if I can be
yes.
there for my kids in a way that I didn't have that support, I would do it. I also wouldn't, I tell my kids, don't take 6 years off. It's way too long. I suffered for 15 more years after that. Um, 15 years is what it took to kind of erase the punishment of taking 6 years off. So if you take 1 year off or even two, it's more acceptable. But six, no. Nobody looks at six as a good thing.
Wow, that's some good insight. And it's interesting the different paths that we all walk, Nori. And
Yeah.
having been the founder and CEO at my own company and very much involved working every day, when in fact, and every night and every morning, and it was
And
very
every
hard
weekend.
for me to take time off. And
Yeah.
so there was like, I wore this badge of honor, which was a fake
Yeah.
badge that said, "Hi,
Right.
I only took 2 weeks off, and now I'm back,
Yes.
and aren't I
Yes.
strong
Uh,
and wonderful?" And really, and to
right.
be honest with you, I could have taken more time off. Yes, my
Yeah.
company might have stagnated for what, a month, for 2 months, for 3 months. Couldn't I have done some things at home and still talked on the phone and sold events and this things? But uh, and now at this age, thinking that I had crafted this amazing company that my children then now own. Instead, what I see is when they needed me the most, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
So it's prompted me now at this age of my life to be more involved, to be more committed. I'm never going to be able to go back and reclaim those 6 years you took off. I'm not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's no
And
right
it's
answer
very
here, just so
challenging.
you know.
Yeah, there's no right answer.
Yeah.
And for me, what would have been ideal? I can tell you this. During those 6 years, I was an anxious mess inside because I was afraid that I would never be able to find a job again, because the work that I did was very specific to, I worked for a utility company in San Francisco, and I lived in the suburbs, and there was no way I was going to go back to commuting to San Francisco an hour and 20 minutes each way. And so I didn't know, who would hire me? What kind of job could I get? And I spent way too much time stressing and fretting over that. And I also learned that a lot of other women who stayed home, we had to fight hard not to be invisible. Like you said, when you retired, am I going to
Yeah.
be invisible? And when women stay home, I wasn't angry, but I was determined to make sure that I was not
Mm,
invisible. So I think a lot of
yeah.
women overdo it on that. I became, a school board member. I ran the grant committee. I was the Girl Scout troop leader of 2 troops. I was overdoing it constantly and keeping myself busy to not be invisible and to feel valued.
So that okay. I have so many questions. So I want to start with one way back at the beginning, which looks like this. There are women listening, I know, who are just looking at us and saying, well, at least you had a seat at the table. At least you knew what the table was. At least you were invited or whatever. How do those women who are listening, who want a seat at the table, what steps would you recommend to them to find their way to their position that they feel reflects their qualities, their abilities, and the drive within inside themselves? Some women are just lost as to how to find that.
I realized what my passion really was, and that's writing. And I wasn't prepared for that in the journey. I had actually joined a incubator program to start a startup because no one would hire me. I thought, oh, I'll start my own company since no one will hire me. And in doing that, I realized I don't want to start a startup. I want to write. So getting in touch with
Ah,
what really drives you, what really energizes you is the first step in figuring out how to get your seat back. It's to focus your next steps around that. And what I realized too is that the job that you do does not have to be your purpose and passion. They can
ah,
be separate. We spend so much time thinking, what do I want to do when I grow up? What do I want to be? As if that is the only thing, our career has to drive everything about our happiness. And what I realized is it doesn't. So figure out what your passion is and then figure out if you want to pursue a career and a job related to that passion, or if you can do your passion separately and do your job as another passion, but maybe a little bit subservient to the greater passion. And so my overarching passion is writing, and my job fits into that, but it isn't the main thing that drives me. So that's step number one. What do you want to be, and what do you want to do? They're different. They might be the same, but they
yeah.
are often different. And then building that confidence. A lot of women, when they hit their 40s and 50s, you look in the mirror like, who is this person? What are these wrinkles? I'm not my mom. What's going on? And
Is this all there is to life?
owning my age was a big part of it. As an
Yeah.
experiment for the book, I stopped dyeing my hair. And it was a couple of years before COVID,
I
so
haven't done that.
I was ahead of the game. I wanted to see what I really looked like. And I really, truly wanted to see if people treated me differently
Ah,
based on my hair color, because we have a bias in this country, and I'm guilty of it too. I like men with gray hair. I think they
mm,
look awesome. They
yeah,
look, the silver fox, a little
yeah,
bit of the
absolutely.
side, it looks great. And yet for women, oh, they're going gray. You should dye your hair. I hear that all the time. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought, I'm going to let it go and see what happens. And honestly, I started looking at women who were gray or even white, and they came across as so powerful and confident. And a lot of C-suite women will let themselves go gray. And so it was just an
Yeah.
experiment to see if people actually would treat me differently. And guess what? They did. They did. I felt more confident. I felt like
Ah,
people respected me more. And I thought, was it really my hair or was it me? I think it was a combination of both, because when you commit to stepping into that look of having the gray hair, you build confidence by doing it because you're doing it
yeah.
intentionally. You're not letting yourself go. You are owning yourself. So that confidence then exuded. And so people did treat me differently. So it's a combination. But, owning your age and I I am not a fan of taking your years off your resume and saying, you
Yeah.
never graduated from college and what year was it? If I see a resume like that, it automatically says, oh, this person's trying to hide their age. Of course they're old.
Yeah.
Whereas if you put the year on and then just own it in your resume, to me, it's much more productive. So there are a lot of discussions about that and perspectives, but that is mine. And once I started not trying to hide myself, not trying to be somebody I wasn't, not trying to be this, I was 54 when I started writing the book, a 54-year-old woman, people started respecting me for it. So that was a key point. So building that
Yeah.
self-confidence, and in the book I give a lot of tips on how to do that. Being focusing on your inner athlete is key. I was one of those kids that was not picked for the sports team. I couldn't run fast. I just wasn't an athlete. And as an adult woman, now I realize I could have been. I just was lacking the confidence and I didn't have that mentor to help me.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
probably did not lack any different physical genes than anyone else. In fact,
Right.
now what I've learned, because I finally did the 23andMe and all the genetic stuff, I thought I had zero physical ability growing up. I was never on any sport team, always picked
Yeah.
last. And then when I started to take charge of my physical body and make that transformation, and realized that I could strength train like nobody and lay down muscle. And I've got pictures of me that just look like, I am the strongest woman at the gym at age 70. And when I did the research, I found out that I have an extra protein
Oh,
and
wow.
that people who have this can build more muscle, and only 10% of the population have this.
That's
And I
so
thought, what
interesting.
if I had known that when I
Yeah.
was 14? Would that have
Right.
changed my life?
Yeah.
Probably, but no regrets. And I think that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest things is that as I've aged and looked at, oh, I didn't take time off for my children, or I could have done this, or I could have done that, that meant that I wouldn't have done this and I wouldn't
Right.
have done that. And for me, the joy lies in not living in regret, but rather in absolutely embracing it. One of the things I've learned, Nori, is I've looked at how to maintain seats at the table or reclaim your seat at the table or keep your
Yeah.
seat at the table, is that it's less about being picked and more about simply being. If
So true.
if you want to be on a board, the easiest thing to do is to go find a nonprofit. They
Right.
want people on their boards. They're looking for people on their boards. And that was some of my first steps into being on a board. I've been on dozens of boards now. At one time I was on 7 different boards at one time. And I simply I simply wanted to be on them, but I put out to the world that I was a person that was of value and I believed it. And then
Right.
people are drawn to you. If you're sitting back, the flower against the wall, wondering, "Oh, I'm this and I'm that," and fear is ruling your life, you're never going to get on a board. You're never going to
Yeah.
keep
And
your seat.
volunteering is a
Yeah,
great way to get in too. So pick a nonprofit that you care about, start volunteering, and then get on the board.
yeah.
As you said, it's not that hard to get on a nonprofit
It's
board, and
not.
they all need leadership and help. And every person has value and experience and wisdom to give. So get involved and do it. And then another big part of the book is about staying relevant and not being afraid to grow and learn and really facing head on your fears and getting through them and learning those skills that you might be lacking.
I went through college typing on a Smith Corona typewriter.
Oh,
So
yeah.
the amount of technology that I've had to learn to even use my cell phone, people have no idea. And when I used to use that analogy of the Smith Corona typewriter when I would talk to college students, they would laugh. And now they just look at me like, what in
Right.
the world is that? I don't even know what she's talking
Right. And
about.
who knows, it might come back because now record players are a fun thing.
Yeah,
My kids,
phonographs, right?
yeah, the typewriter is now a quaint, archaic thing that is in museums, but you never know. We might be going back to that, and people will think it's quaint. So you
So
never know.
staying
But learning those tech skills is so critical.
Okay, so that's the question I want to ask though. We all know that learning those tech skills is critical and staying current. But for me the big question is how? If you're
How?
not currently in a university or in a tech program, or how do we learn those things now without looking like, "Hi, can someone teach me this?"
So there are a couple of things. One is AI, and I like to call AI
Ah,
ageism interrupted because AI can be your best friend in helping to learn things that you should know and don't, and might be afraid to ask or don't even know where to start. So get onto your computer.
I
Don't
love
use
that
Google.
idea.
You can Google AI, and there are a lot of different AI systems, and just ask AI how to start or how to do something, and you will be amazed at what pops up. And it is such a time saver. So, ageism
Wow.
interrupted. AI.
Okay, so I just want to tell you how you just changed my life. When I retired at age 65, which was 5 years ago, I had 8 assistants, okay, that did all sorts of different things for me. One of them was a person, a couple actually, and they did all of my PowerPoints. They updated my website. They did this, they did that. Uh, and now I've retired. I no longer have access to those people. And so when I speak, I'm giving the same PowerPoint that I used 5 years ago. I've learned so much more, but I don't know how to make a PowerPoint now. So
Okay,
I'm like,
so
okay, I can AI that?
you can AI that. You can AI anything. I even AI'd my book, How to Keep Your Seat at the Table. Oh my goodness. It basically had read my book.
Wow.
So AI is your best friend there. And yes, AI is controversial and there's a lot of damage that can be done and you have to be careful. And you can't take it everything at face value. You have to do your own research, but it is a great place to start. And then
Yeah.
there are all these online, a lot of them are free, some cost money. Facebook Learning, LinkedIn Learning, these programs that are already available that you already know how to use. They have all of these classes you can take online.
Wow.
LinkedIn Learning is absolutely amazing, all the courses that they offer in such a wide variety of topics like marketing. You want to get a certificate in marketing, you can do that. And there's also organizations like maybe you've heard of Khan Academy
Yeah.
for students. Khan Academy is this wonderful online learning program, but it's for students. You're going to use it to learn trigonometry or calculus or something scientific. But there's also one for the work world. It's called Allison. And it's the same kind of
Allison.
thing where you go on and you can take courses in just about everything. So, and
Mm.
PowerPoint, if you go into PowerPoint, you can do the tutorials that are there. And then YouTube. A lot of people our age don't use YouTube the way we need to.
Mm.
YouTube has everything. If you don't know how to do something or you're looking for just how to build the rack that you bought off Amazon that comes in 500 pieces and you thought it would be easy to put
No,
together,
I
just
have used
YouTube it.
YouTube for that.
Yeah, so YouTube it and it'll be much easier. But
I
you can
love
also
that.
use YouTube to, how do I do a PowerPoint? Use YouTube and it'll show you.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and there's a long list in the book of different resources and they change all the time. That's the thing. I need to keep editing the book and updating it on my website, what's more up to date. But
Mm.
AI is the first place to start for sure.
I love that. You've changed my life. Thank you. And I will be sending you a bouquet of flowers when I learn how to do my own PowerPoint. So
And
one
it's
of the
so much
things,
fun. You're gonna love it. You're gonna
well,
just want to go on there all the
that's the
time.
thing that I have learned, Nori, is that my mind really is as sharp as it ever was.
Yeah.
And I maybe takes me longer to get through all the files to remember something, but it's still there and I know I can find it. And
Yes.
that the great thing about aging for me has been to claim the wisdom that has come with it.
Yes.
Sometimes I'm looking at women who are aging and I wonder, where is your wisdom? Seriously, honey, because if you're looking for a job or you're wanting to stay relevant or you're wanting to keep your seat at the table, why suddenly now in your 50s are you posting these crazy videos on social media of you dancing like some sort of a, oh, ugh. I'm like, so I think that there has to be part of that social media in your book as being keeping your seat at the table, keep your head on social media.
Yes, and managing it. And this is a big part of the chapter that I cover on this is figuring out what your policies are for yourself and how
Yes.
you want to use social media to promote yourself. Because do you want to be that crazy dancer? If you do, then that's fine, but think it through. Be strategic about it. Really own
Yeah.
it, and
Yeah.
decide how you're going to use Facebook, how you're going to use LinkedIn, and how you're going to use Instagram or whatever social media platform you use. If you're going to be a Twitter person, I don't really get Twitter. I mean, I understand its value. I
I
just
don't
don't
tweet.
like
I,
using
I
it
don't.
myself. And I don't have time to go on there. I tend to focus on LinkedIn for me, for the work that I do. But for a lot of other people, Twitter is the way. Or TikTok is now huge for
Yeah.
promoting
I have to
yourself and
say, I
your,
don't have it.
if,
I don't use it.
yeah.
Do you think those are important? I mean, like I use LinkedIn, I use the standard Instagram and Facebook, but I don't tweet and I don't talk a tick. And so,
It depends on your industry. It's very industry specific and it's also very age specific. So all young people are on TikTok and one of the memes going around is people that are in their 20s get their news from TikTok.
yeah,
So
yeah,
if you're
I
not
know that.
posting on TikTok, they're not listening. So if you have a message for somebody in their 20s, you better be on TikTok. And it's that simple. So or whatever platform is popular at the time. So it is important, but if you're not going to use it, again, you have to think that through and make it a strategic decision about it. So I have a chapter in there about really understanding the platforms, what they're for, doing your homework on that. And again, AI can be helpful here. What's the best platform for me? Put that into AI, say a little bit about what you do, and it's going to
And
come up
it's
with
going
your
to spit out what
suggestions. Hmm.
I love that. I was
Yeah.
reading through the table of contents for your book. They are so many things I wanted to talk about today. We're out of time. Nori, I hope you will come back and join us. I think that every woman, really, from probably age 25 to 65, needs to have a copy of your book. I really do.
Oh,
That's how much as I read through this, I went, oh, yeah. And then when you get there, you have to reinforce it. And yeah, don't get the table pulled from under you. And do you even know what the table is? I mean, there's so much in here. We could talk forever.
it's it's so
Yeah,
fun. The table is the perfect metaphor for women because it's so important to us and it permeates every aspect of our lives. So I definitely reclaimed the boardroom table for women in the book. And yes, I would love to come back.
I would love that, Nori. All right, listeners, you can see why I thought this woman would be someone you would absolutely gravitate to. And so easy to talk to. I can only imagine, Nori, that your book is the same. It reads just like this conversation that you and I are having, where you can actually feel and understand. You're not going to talk over people's heads. And that you are a real person. All the links to buying her book on Amazon are included at the end of the podcast, as well as her LinkedIn and any place else to be able to find and follow what Nori is doing, this newly reinvented woman who is just now claiming all that she has always been, always. Nori, thank you so much for your time today. And to all of you who are listening, this is your week to begin to be in the middle of and to flourish in crafting your meaningful life. Thank you. Namaste.
Crafting a Meaningful Life.